What's good, YouTube? You're back on S Motorsports. Today we're making a custom air intake for the LQ4 Trans Am. Alright guys, like I said, we got to make a custom intake for the new engine build that I just got running and that you saw in the previous videos. If you haven't seen those, make sure to check those out, as we got the first start and the first drive videos, which were eventful. But today we're going to be making a custom air intake. As you can see, I just got it hanging up out in space right now, and the hood is definitely not going to go on yet. And I do want to get the hood on so it looks, so I can drive it all over and not have any issues with people staring with the hood off. Also, I need to get this down into this area is where the air filter is going to go to get more of a cold air intake, and I do want to build a shroud, and I have parts for that, and I'll show you what I picked up. So what I ended up getting was a cheap eBay air intake for a 2010 and up Camaro, 2010 to 2015 Camaro. And basically why I got that is that's what the intake tube that you saw here is from. And I needed that for the LS3 style math card because I knew I wanted to run the LS3 style math card, as it's less of a restriction in the 4-inch tube versus like the older, whatever, cased ones that are 3.5-inch diameter. So I got that, and that's really all I got that kit for, was that tube. But it did come with some other stuff. It did come with like the filter and adapter. The filter that they provided was not good. It actually was broken already. Luckily, I had the old air filter off of the Camaro, or I'm using the one that was on it, and then I replaced the Camaro one with the new one. So then what I also did pick up was some elbows from Amazon, some silicone nicer elbows versus what they provided in the kit was not very good. But these seem pretty nice. They're a little dirty. They'll clean up nice though. But basically we're gonna, cut this to size. That's gonna be coming off of the intake. We'll have the tube, and then we'll go to a 45 to kind of angle it down into this area, and then attach the filter. But what this kit also came with, which is what I wanted, was basically the block off plate. Now, is this gonna fit the car? No, but it's a starting point that I can use to mock up. Turn it around. So basically I'll use some CAD, cardboard aided design, and kind of trace this out and then cut it to fit. And that's easier than starting from scratch, is what I thought. So basically this is what they provide you in the kit. And then we can start there. They also provided, some clamps, some hoses. The hose I'm not going to use, but they did provide some seals as well, so we can seal this off to the hood. So basically it's just kind of a make your own kit is the way I saw it. So let's dive into it. Let's get the old intake off, and then we can start mocking up the new stuff. All right guys, like I said, this is the air filter that I was running on the Camaro. I swapped a newer one that I had, which was a cotton filter element on the Camaro from a test that I did previously, and I'll put a link for that video, which that one was pretty fun. This was the piece that they provided in the eBay kit, which ended up being the same diameter to work with the Roto-Fab filter, so that actually worked pretty good. And so like I said, then that allows me to kind of clock this filter a little differently however I want. But basically it's going to end up being right here, and we'll come up with a 45 and then over. So let's start with the silicone 90-degree boot, get that laid in, and then we can lay the intake tube in and kind of mock everything up. All right, this is the one that came in the eBay kit. This is the new one. As you can see, this one's pretty flimsy. This one's a lot stronger. I think it's gonna look a little better too. But as you can see, it's a little long, so we definitely need to trim that up. And actually this length for this guy is kind of perfect. So I'm gonna use this as a template and trim this off to get that to sit at a better distance away so the tube can run nice and low here. Alright guys, so I marked the tube where I think I need to cut it. Obviously I'm kind of hedging a little bit long as you can't add material. But then I think this should work good. I put a tube in this side too, just to keep this side a little more rigid as I cut it. But I got a new sharp blade in my cutter here, and we'll trim this down, see how it goes. It actually cut pretty easy. Looks pretty good. So I got the main 90-degree boot cut. I did shorten this one a little bit too. Basically the same length as the coupler that came in the kit. And I think that actually works pretty good. I do have to be aware of the positioning of this nipple for the PCV clean side is not really in a good spot, but I think I'll be able to get a kind of a U-shaped bend in here and down and hide it pretty good. But I think I like this. I think this looks pretty good. I have a little bit of room to move this up a little bit so it's maybe not resting on the hose. But the next step is I'm going to trace out on cardboard a piece of metal that came with it. I'm going to trace out this first and start with this actually and cut it. So that way I know that I'll be able to cut this smaller to the shape, because right now this is so big it doesn't even fit in the space very well. But basically it's going to kind of look like that, the way it needs to go in. These are the holes for the piece that covers this side. And I'm hoping I can just kind of trim this away enough or trim it down to get this to fit in there nice and have this stick up a little bit so it seals to the hood. So that's the plan. I think I like this setup right now. I actually didn't trim this at all. This is just kind of stuck in there a ways, which is fine. And I don't really want to trim this unless I don't have to, just because it's a really nice clean edge right now. But I think the filter placement looks really good. If I could just get a shroud around that, I'd be really happy with that configuration. So let's trace out some CAD design and start cutting this up and get this to fit. So guys, I cut out the shape of the panel that came in the kit. It is the same size. As you can see, it's way too big to fit in here, way too tall. So my plan is to start with this, and then I can just trim it down and then match this, you know, with the opening, so I can trace then on the sheet metal part to cut it out the same, and then the piece will, that's kind of an afterthought. But yeah, this is how I'm gonna start. I'm gonna kind of take some measurements of how high I think I need to cut it down and start with that. So guys, I just kind of got a makeshift brace here to kind of set my hood line, so I can kind of tell how much to cut it down from. And then I am just kind of eyeballing and trimming around like my electrical wires, and I do have my brake booster mounted under here, so I have lines running this way. So I'm just kind of trimming around those. Nothing real scientific there, just kind of seeing what looks good. It's not scientific, but we'll start with that, start a little small, and just keep cutting, make it fit. All right guys, I'm trying to connect everything up. I put some clamps on to keep it in place a little bit better. But I wanted to make a note, as this is kind of a little slick piece that I tried to find and missed a few times, but then I found this and I think it's gonna work pretty good. It's just basically a piece of hose that's molded into a bunch of different shapes, and you can cut it to whatever, you know, angle you want. If you want a 45, if you want a 90, if you want 180, you can just cut it to fit. And what I'm gonna do is use that in this location for the nipple here. I'm gonna cut it short and hopefully make that bend and then duck underneath and connect up with this hose, which is going to the PCV valve. So to try and keep it really nice and clean and make sure that the connector is rotated down so it's not hitting the hood. I think this should work pretty good, so I'm gonna cut and trim and make that happen. All right guys, we're back. It's been a few days, and I want to show you a few updates that I did. I ended up going for a little drive with air intake put back on, and just to kind of get an idea of what air intake temperatures I would see without the shroud. And I was getting roughly 108 degrees air intake temperature at speed, and that was, you know, 68 degrees. So quite a bit of a difference, you know, 40 degrees worth of intake rise, because obviously it's going to pull the air that's easiest, and that was probably coming from the radiator. Also, I wanted to note that I did change out the underhood insulation to a new fiberglass piece. I'll put a link in the description, as I feel like the price was pretty good on this. It was only 40 bucks. As mine was falling apart, you'd touch it and it would just turn to dust. So definitely not good. So we will continue cutting the air intake. I got my shape cut out. As you can see, this is the stock one that came with the eBay kit. And then this is my mock-up piece where I need to cut it. I traced it out. I need to cut a bunch off the bottom and then cut this out. And I think I will end up filling this in to make sure that it is a tight seal, as the air intake kind of sits a little higher, but not a big deal. So let's get cutting. Okay guys, I got a little ahead of myself, a little excited. You know how that goes. Yeah, I got the box put in. It's looking really good. So what I did was I did the same technique of tracing out this stock piece on a piece of cardboard and then kind of cut it to fit. And I had to cut a little bit off the bottom and cut a little bit more here. And then I got it the same height. I bolted it together with the bolts that they supplied in the kit. That worked out really good, honestly. And then this is supplied quick edge from the kit again for like 80 bucks. You can't go wrong. I mean, I'm reusing a lot of stuff here, but I mean, it honestly looks like an airbox. Right now, I don't even have it bolted in. My plan is to use the supplied bracket that they actually give, use this hole and drill a new hole in here to mount that. So that's nice and sturdy. And then that's really gonna secure this, you know, nice and tight there. This isn't gonna go anywhere. And then I'm gonna take this all back out, kind of leave this in place, and then mark and drill a hole in the bottom to kind of secure that corner. And really, I think that's all I'm gonna do, because it's pretty solid pinched in there. And then I just shoved some foam in here as well to make sure that this gap was sealed up. Put quick edge all the way around. There is like a finger gap underneath here, which it is what it is. I will do a quick video too of showing I put a light in here and then put a camera over here to see how this sealed. And this honestly seals up perfect to the hood. I couldn't be happier. Like, this is gonna work really good. This obviously is gonna be open, but it is what it is. You know, you could probably put some sort of foam or something over top as well, but that looks pretty good. So yeah, let's start. I'll get you set up again on the tripod. We'll drill and mark some holes here and get this buttoned up, and then we can maybe do some testing as well to see if it actually pulls in cold air, if it pulls in hot air from the engine. Again, I just popped the intake out. I have these little brackets. I got this off Amazon. I'll actually put a link because I use this for the mount for the transmission dipstick too. So that these little brackets kind of come in handy, and they're already black, so I think that'll work good. Let's see, we can make it work. And then I think I'm gonna end up running a self tapper down, because this is gonna be going into like the frame where you're not gonna have access for a nut. But we can use a self tapper. All right guys, so I drilled a pilot hole, as you can see, just a little guy. I wanted to start small because you can always go bigger. So got that. I'm gonna reuse this existing hole with an M6 bolt. So really, that's really the only modification I had to do, which is crazy. And like I said, I put this foam right here in there to just block any air, because that shroud kind of butts up against there, so that'll work good. It's the same like foam that I use right here for the radiator, which is just like window air conditioning foam. I've ran that for years with this radiator, and no issues with heating or melting or anything. It actually works really, really good. All right, I don't know if I showed you guys exactly, but this is kind of the finished product. I just put a little bracket to hold this down. This is gonna hold that corner down, and like I said, this is the hole for the upper one here, and really that's it. This is kind of what I did for the quick edge. This is the one that was provided in the kit. I did have this extra, it's a little smaller. I used that on the bottom because I didn't really need the large quick edge, but then as well as the small one here. Big quick edge around the top ceiling to the hood. So yeah, let's get this thing installed. I think the best thing about this is that the intake is so easy to put on. I just, didn't even disconnect that. This just goes back on. And then really this just falls into place. And then, yeah, let's put the camera in here too and show you how well this seals to the hood, because it is quite nice. All right, I got a couple of lights in there. You will probably see light coming through, the opening where the intake tube is. That's to be expected, but take a look. As you can see, I'm pushing down on the hood, and it looks like it seals real nice. Oh yeah, that's looking mint. I am super happy with how this turned out, the air intake. So I will have to take it for a drive in the future and kind of look at my air temps, but all indications already, I was taking a log when I was just warming it up slowly. The air intake was pretty close to ambient. It only got to above like 10 degrees above ambient when the engine was fully warm. So that tells me that that thing is working pretty good. Otherwise, even with the open element that was right here, it was sucking hot air like right away, and you could tell that this is working. So I think on the road it's only going to improve, but make sure to stay tuned, as I'll have to do that and let you guys know in the future. But I am super happy how this turned out, and man, does this thing sound like a beast. I mean, we got to get some more pulls in this thing. I am just starting to do that in the tuning, so make sure to stay tuned. I think I'm, not too far off from the speed density tune, and then I will be doing the MAF tune, which honestly, that's going to be pretty easy. I think it's already pretty close, as I have some other, Camaro tunes or whatever with the 4-inch intake. So the MAF tune should be pretty good, and then we can really ham on her, as this thing is pretty quick. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Let me know if you guys like those exhaust revs, because, oof, man, probably pissed off all the neighbors. So I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.